this will be...
So, because gold is primarily money. That's its main use. It's not as jewelry, it's not as dentistry. And sure, it's got those uses and they're perfectly valid, but its main use has always been, and I believe will always be, money. Silver is secondary in that, because it's worth less, and copper is tertiary in that respect for use as a money. But which do I like best? Well, I think the silver is more likely to howl. And the reason for that is it's a smaller market, therefore it's more volatile, and there's no inventory that can be fed into the market at some point by anybody. So I'm more bullish on silver, is the long-winded answer. It's more than you probably wanted to know, but I hate to give you an opinion without telling you why I am partial to that opinion, and that's why. But at the same time, if the Greater Depression is really nasty, I mean, maybe silver is going to collapse because maybe a lot of its industrial uses are going to go down and people have to sell it. So consider it a speculative vehicle. It's only a secondary money.
Okay, we got a lot of questions about the gold standard. If we return to a gold standard, how would that actually happen? Presumably it only happens when the politicians have no choice, when things are so bad that you can actually get elected by proposing a gold standard or something. And I hadn't thought of this as a separate question, but we actually got a fair number of questions. Would there be a silver standard too, or?
Well, these are kind of misdirected questions, in my opinion. I don't believe in a gold standard. Now, how can that be? Because that means that there's a government that's printing a currency which is based upon gold. Let's cut out the middleman, okay? And gold is money. So why do you have to have a government printing receipts for the money? This is something that private banks used to do before 1913. If you trusted your bank, it was more convenient to have a $100 bill representing 5 ounces of gold when it was $20 an ounce than to have 5 eagles, double eagles in your pocket. So I don't believe in a gold standard because it's subject to corruption, because it's something that a government would do. I think that people should use gold, and if they wish, silver, or if they wish, molybdenum. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference. Molybdenum is just not as suitable for money as gold, or for that matter, silver, which isn't as suitable as gold in day-to-day commerce. And why do you have to have a gold standard with the government involved? I don't see why the government should be involved in money any more than it should be involved in food delivery or making cars or education or any of these things. So that's a misdirection, that question
that's
about a gold standard.
Okay. One more from the electronic, and then we'll go to questions here, and if we have time, we'll see where we go. There were a number of questions about the economic crisis, how it's unfolding, and so on. And a good question that came in was sort of the alternative. You know, what would the world look like now if they hadn't done the bailout, if they had let things unwind, and where would...
Well, I guess that's in the you'll find out department, and the reason I say that is because in the next couple of years, these bailouts will be pointless, and the old system is going to collapse, except much more. I'll tell you what would have happened if they hadn't done the bailout. What would have happened is this, is that a lot of these big investment banks would have failed, or they would have defaulted on their bonds, and financial institutions, which are far too great a share of the economy, in my opinion, would collapse. Okay, so what's this? So a lot of people that are working in and around these things are going to lose their job. The most important reason that I think they can put forward why they didn't let these things fail is all the banks would have failed. And if you went down to the bank to get $1,000 out, the bank wouldn't have it. The money would have died and gone to money heaven, and your credit cards
or money hell.
Yeah, exactly. your credit cards wouldn't work because you wouldn't have money in your account because the bank would have failed and so forth. So it would have been a period of chaos, okay? So that would have been bad news. Plus all the rich guys who had all these bonds and stocks, they all would have lost their money. Sure, that would have been bad. But what's going to happen is going to be worse, because instead of the dollar still existing, but lots of them disappearing through bank failures, what's actually going to happen is the dollar, everybody's dollars, are going to be inflated out of existence for practical purposes. So now, instead of just a couple million people, a few million people being damaged, now you're going to have hundreds of millions of people damaged when all their savings, the most productive people, you've got to remember, produce more than they consume and they save the difference. But how do they do that? They save it in dollars in banks. That's really what people do, basically. And if those dollars are destroyed, you're wiping out the most productive people and everything that they've saved. Worse than that, you're wiping out the debt of the governments of the world. Looks great for them after the chaos is over. You're wiping out the debts of the people that were profligate. So it turns justice completely on its head. But I think that's what's likely to happen.
I can hear it coming, Doug.
It's perverse. It is. It is. So it would have been bad, but this is going to be more. It's going to be worse, and I don't see any way out of it at this point. I mean, you've got a lunatic at the control of the elevator.
Okay. Well.
Oh, there's one other question we were going to ask because I know people are interested in this. It was about conspiracy keeping gold and silver down. And I have asked anybody, to give me a reason why they really believe in this conspiracy theory of 8 or less, or is it 3 or more, or I don't know how many banks or whoever it is, intervening in the market and keeping down the price of gold and, I guess, silver. And, of course, I can understand why governments don't want gold and silver to go up, because it would be like eventually ringing a bell that there's something wrong. Although it's not a bell that most people would listen, because the average person doesn't have a clue that gold and silver were ever even used as money. They don't know and they don't care. But there's this conspiracy theory floating around that these, I don't know.
The bullion banks.
Yeah, the bullion banks, 4 or less, I don't know, 2 or more, I don't know how many of them there are suppressing the price. To me, it's kind of idiotic, because you can't stay short during one of the biggest bull markets in history for a decade and lose hundreds of billions of dollars being short during a bull market. Nobody's got hundreds of billions of dollars to pointlessly throw at a market like that. Who are the traders that are executing these trades every day? Do they talk to each other about how stupid their bosses are for, fighting the trend? I mean, nobody ever answers that basic question. Where's the hundreds of billions of dollars coming from to take these losses for these banks? And, the government's doing. Well, how's the government transferring these hundreds of billions of dollars to the bank? And, so to me, it's loony conspiracy theory. And I do believe in some conspiracy theories, or the possibility of them, incidentally, which are everything from the Kennedy assassination to, Waco, and for all I know, 9/11. It's interesting questions that need to be answered. But to me, this is one that doesn't even have wings. Forget about flying. So
it's a conspiracy on a level that the number of people that have to be involved makes it highly implausible.
Highly implausible. Those traders all talk to each other. And being the way they are, they'd say, how stupid are these people that are fighting a bull market over 10 years?
But what about these commitment of trader reports that we hear about and so on that seem to be the smoking gun?
God, I don't know. I really don't understand. I don't know. What do you think about them? You have an opinion on these?
Well,
Smoke screens that are mentioned for reasons that I don't even understand.
my thought is that I look at these, commitment of trader report alarms and so on, and it looks very persuasive. Like, wow, yeah, that doesn't look sustainable. Something's got to go boink there. But that was true last year, and the year before that, and the year before that.
And 10 years ago.
And maybe we're misinterpreting these reports because something can't be on the verge of disaster for 10 years.
Well, these traders have got to be commitment of traders. They've got to be really committed to their mistake, and they should be committed. So,
Commitment of traders would be a good thing.
Yeah, forget about commitment of traders. It's meaningless.